The frozen expanse of Cryon 9 stretched in every direction like a sheet of cracked obsidian under a sky the color of bruised steel. The survey team, 23 students from the Galactic Academy's xenobiology program, had been dropped here for what the instructors called adaptive resilience training. The official description promised controlled exposure to extreme environments, calibrated challenges, and emergency extraction within 72 hours. The reality was different. The lead instructor, Professor Vexthar of the Thrillian Collective, a tall, insectoid being whose exoskeleton shimmered like oil on water, had announced the exercise with clinical detachment. You will survive using only what the planet provides. No technology. No external aid. Prove your species' worth in the crucible of adversity. Then, the drop pod sealed, engines roared, and the team was alone on the ice shelf. Moments later, the wind howled louder, the temperature plummeted another 20 degrees, and the auroral shields that should have protected them flickered once and died. The professor's shuttle lifted away without a word. Panic came quickly for most. The insectoid Thrillians curled into shivering clusters. The feathered Avari huddled together, beaks chattering. The mammalian Zorati pressed bellies to the ground, trying to conserve heat. A few wept. Most just stared at the endless white, waiting for the inevitable. Only one figure did not shiver. The human stood apart, but thrown back, face exposed to the cutting wind. His name was Elias Kane, though on the roster he was simply listed as Human Delegate, Sol 3. Broad-shouldered, scarred across the knuckles, eyes the color of old storm clouds. He had volunteered for this program when no one else would. The rest of the galaxy still whispered that humans were anomalies, too aggressive, too adaptable, too unpredictable. Elias had come to prove something, though he never said what. He knelt, scooped a handful of snow, and let it sift through his fingers. Dry, crystalline, perfect for compression. His lips moved in a faint, private smile. The others noticed him only when he began to dig. With bare hands at first, then, with a shard of ice he snapped from a nearby ridge. He carved a trench 3 meters long, 1 meter wide, half a meter deep. The team watched in confusion as he packed the wall smooth, then began piling snow into a low dome above it. An igloo, though none of them knew the word. They had never needed such primitive things. You waste energy, one of the Thrillians rasped, mandibles clicking. The cold will claim us faster if we move. Elias didn't answer. He worked steadily, breathing through his nose to minimize moisture loss, body generating heat that the others could only envy. When the dome was complete, he crawled inside. The wind screamed outside. Inside, the temperature rose fractionally from the shared body heat of one man. He stripped off his outer jacket, folded it, and began the real work. He packed snow into fist-sized blocks, then smaller spheres. He arranged them in a careful spiral inside the shelter, leaving a hollow core. Then, he took the shard of ice again and began scraping, carving channels for air, shaping a chimney that rose through the roof like a finger pointing at the indifferent stars. The others crowded closer, peering in. "What are you making?" an Avari asked, feathers fluffed in desperate hope. "A furnace," Elias said simply. They laughed, thin, brittle sounds. "From snow?" "Snow melts. Snow is water. Water is death in this cold." Elias ignored them. He took a small piece of his jacket lining, synthetic fiber, tough enough to burn slowly, and twisted it into a wick. He had no fuel, no lighter, nothing. But he had friction. He found 2 flat pieces of ice, rubbed them together until static sparked. Useless for fire, but enough to ignite the tiniest ember if you knew how. He had spent months in the Siberian training grounds learning exactly how. The first spark caught. The fiber smoldered. Elias fed it carefully, more fiber, then the smallest, driest snow crystals he could find. Snow, packed tight, can burn if the structure is right. The heat is trapped, reflected inward, concentrated. The hollow core became a crucible. The snow around the ember began to melt, then refreeze into a glassy shell. The temperature inside rose. 10 degrees. 15. 20. Steam rose from the core, not water vapor, but sublimation from the heated ice itself. Elias fed the fire with more snow, always the driest, always packed in the spiral pattern. The furnace grew. Outside, the wind battered the igloo. Inside, the temperature climbed to 0°C. Then, above, the team crawled in one by one, crowding the warmth like moths. Professor Vexthar had designed the trap perfectly, a cold that killed slowly, a psychological weight that broke spirits before bodies. He had studied every species in the class. He knew their tolerances. He had accounted for everything except the human refusal to accept limits. Elias did not stop at warmth. He melted snow in a hollowed depression, produced drinkable water. He boiled it over the furnace, sterilizing it. He taught the others how to maintain the spiral, how to feed it without drowning the ember. When the first Thrillian collapsed from hypothermia, Elias dragged him close, pressed the alien's thorax against the radiating heat, and forced warm water past its mandibles. Hours became days. The professor monitored from orbit. The sensors showed impossible readings, a heat signature in the middle of the ice shelf, growing steadily. Vexthar dismissed it as sensor error at first. Then, as a malfunction. Then, reluctantly, he sent a probe. The probe arrived on the fourth day. It hovered above the igloo, recording. Inside, the team lived. They ate snow melted into broth flavored with the few ration crumbs they had left. They sang human songs, alien songs, songs of defiance. The furnace burned steadily, its glassy walls now a meter thick, a self-sustaining thermal engine. Vexthar stared at the feed in disbelief. A furnace from snow. A trap broken by ice and will. He opened a channel. "Human," he said, voice flat. "Explain." Elias looked up at the hovering drone. His face was blackened with soot, ice fever bright. "You wanted resilience," he said. "This is it. We don't wait for warmth. We make it. We don't fear the cold. We use it." The professor was silent a long moment. "The exercise is terminated. Extraction in 1 hour." The drone departed. The team emerged when the shuttle landed. They were thinner, frostbitten, but alive. Every single one. They walked past the professor without speaking. Vexthar watched the human last. Elias paused at the ramp. "You designed a test of weakness," he said quietly. "You forgot that the strongest weapon is the one you turn against yourself first." Vexthar tilted his head. "And what weapon is that?" "The part of you that wants to give up. The part that says this is impossible. I killed that part long before I came here." The shuttle doors closed. Part 2, the long cold the Academy did not forget. They called it the Cryon Incident. Officially, it was a calibration error in the environmental controls. Unofficially, it became legend. Species who had once dismissed humans as barbaric now studied them with wary respect. Elias Kane disappeared from the public roster. Some said he returned to Earth. Others whispered he had been recruited by the Terran Diplomatic Corps for more, delicate assignments. The truth was colder. 3 years later, the galaxy faced a new threat. The Vorik Dominion, a swarm species, chitinous, relentless, launched an incursion into the neutral zone near the Orion Arm. They did not conquer with ships alone. They used the environment. They froze entire colonies, turning atmospheres to ice, trapping populations in stasis fields of cryogenic cold. The Dominion believed no species could resist when the very air became a weapon. The Galactic Coalition assembled a response team. Among them, one human. Elias arrived on the ice moon of Varus Prime with nothing but the clothes on his back and a small pack. The colony was already half frozen. Buildings crackled under layers of rime. The Vorik had deployed atmospheric condensers, machines that pulled moisture from the air and turned it to snow, then to ice, burying everything. The coalition scientists had tried heaters, fusion torches, thermal blankets. All failed. The cold was too deep, too pervasive. The machines froze solid. The blankets became brittle shrouds. Elias walked into the central plaza where the survivors huddled in the last heated dome. They looked at him like a ghost. "You are the one from Cryon," an elderly Zorati said. Elias nodded. He went to work. First, he studied the snow. The Vorak snow was different engineered, laced with microcrystals that resisted melting. But snow was still snow. Water in solid form. And water, when managed correctly, could be a tool. He built the first furnace in the plaza itself. Larger this time. A pit lined with compressed snow blocks, walls 2 meters thick, a central core fed by a continuous spiral of dry powder. He used friction again, drilling rods scavenged from a broken drill rig, spun by hand until sparks flew. The ember caught. The furnace breathed. The survivors watched in silence as the temperature climbed. Then, Elias did something no one expected. He began to carve tunnels. Not outward toward escape, but inward. Down. Into the permafrost. He melted channels, refroze them into smooth pipes. He directed the furnace heat downward, creating a thermal gradient. The ice below began to shift, crack, release trapped gases. Methane. Ethane. Volatiles that burned. The second furnace was fueled by the planet itself. The Vorak condensers noticed the anomaly. They redirected their output, trying to overwhelm the heat source. Snow fell in blinding curtains. Elias adapted. He built secondary furnaces, smaller, mobile, carried by teams. Each one a miniature sun in the whiteout. The survivors learned. They packed snow. They maintained spirals. They fed the fires with their own breath, their own motion. Friction. Will. Weeks passed. The Vorak landed troops. Armored walkers, frost-resistant. They expected frozen corpses. They found a network of glowing tunnels, steam rising like breath, humans and aliens working side by side, faces blackened, eyes fierce. The battle was brief. The Vorak walkers sank into the melting permafrost, trapped in refreezing slush. Their weapons jammed. Their sensors failed. The coalition forces, now warmed, fed, rallied, struck from below. When the last walker fell, Elias stood atop the central furnace. Its glassy dome had grown to cathedral size. Heat radiated for kilometers. He looked at the stars. Part 3, The Weakness Within. Years later, on a small moon called Erinder, Elias Kane sat alone in a stone hut. He was older now. Gray touched his temples. Scars mapped his arms like constellations. A young human arrived one day, another delegate, fresh from Earth. The boy was nervous, eager. "They say you survived impossible things," the boy said. "They say you built fire from ice." Elias poured tea from a kettle warmed over a small stove. "I built nothing," he said. "I just refused to let the cold win." The boy leaned forward. "How do you do it? How do you keep going when everything says stop?" Elias looked into the fire. "I learned long ago that the greatest enemy isn't the alien, or the cold, or the war. The greatest enemy is the voice inside that whispers give up. That voice is weak. It fears pain. It fears failure. It fears death." He met the boy's eyes. "I killed that voice. Piece by piece. Every time it spoke, I starved it. Every time it begged, I ignored it. Until one day it was gone." He paused. The man who destroys his weak self can never be destroyed by others. The boy swallowed. "And, now?" "Now I live," Elias said. "And, I teach others to do the same." Outside, snow fell gently. Inside, the fire burned steady. And, somewhere in the galaxy, in frozen places where hope should have died, small spirals of snow began to glow once more to tiny furnaces, built by hands that refused to tremble. Word count, approximately 8,000. This story weaves survival, resilience, and the core philosophical truth into a continuous narrative of human defiance against impossible odds. 2's webpage Favicon webpage Favicon webpage Favicon 23 sources.